During the 1960s, the topic of Black liberation and white oppression were on the forefront of the collective minds of African Americans. It was discussed at our dinner tables, town hall meetings, during church sermons, in our barbershop, and everywhere that African Americans gathered. Today, whenever the topics of Black liberation and white oppression are mentioned, many African Americans now respond negatively, saying, man, I don't want to hear that Black liberation shit. It's we that are now our worst enemies. And some say things like, man, stop blaming the white man. I'm tired of you blaming the white man. These are actually programmed responses that have been deliberately embedded into the collective minds of many African Americans. Many African Americans have been programmed to believe that legitimate complaints about white racism no longer exist. Many have been programmed to perceive all Black claims of white racism as scapegoating and refusing to take responsibility for our own failures without ever considering the merits of the claim. Program response are real. It's always by deliberate design whenever the oppressed starts thinking exactly as their oppressors wants them to think. African Americans are the unknowing victims of the most elaborate, massive ideological subversion system in world history. Ideological subversion is an offensive psychological warfare tactic that uses disinformation, misinformation, and repetitive media subliminal manipulation to manipulate targeted populations to think and behave in ways that are against their own self-interest and instead in ways serving the interests of those that are deploying the ideological subversion system. The purpose is to attack the targeted population at a psychological level in a bid to destabilize and undermine the entire population. It confuses the targeted population to such an extent that no one is able to come to any sensible conclusions in the interest of defending their families and their communities. The ideological subversion system that's being deployed against African Americans is deployed like a massive media marketing campaign that constantly subjects us to receiving only the fraudulent worst narratives about ourselves. They constantly inundate us with Black racially demoralizing disinformation about ourselves until many of us begin to doubt our own ability to govern ourselves and believe that we therefore need white people to govern over our lives. This causes many of us to abandon all hopes of ever liberating ourselves. This is why today, most African Americans no longer yearn for Black liberation. Most now only yearns for a comfortable position within the system of white supremacy. This is all by design. They also inundates us with propaganda that manipulates many of us to believe that the white society has changed, thus has overcome its anti-Black racist stance, and that therefore the disparities that now afflicts the African American population are totally the fault of African Americans themselves. Therefore, rather than unifying ourselves against the white oppressive society as we had done so in the past, when we knew that our disparities were either directly or indirectly connected to white racism, now we are upset with our own people. We are disappointed and angry at our own people. This creates a Black self-contemptuous feelings among many within our communities that shifts Black collective aggressions away from the white society and has redirected towards our own people. Because it was done gradually, most African Americans have normalized the fact that our collective aggressions are now directed towards our own people. The purpose of turning our collective aggressions against our own people is to attack the core foundation of what bonds us as a people. As long as we're kept within this condition, we can then be ruled over forever. The practice of developing newer ways to subjugate and control the oppressed is nothing new. Throughout history, those empires that were profoundly racist and brutally oppressive rarely easily abandoned those practices. They most often reinvented those practices with much more sophistication. This is the case in regard to the U.S. white establishment. The mental disease of racism is too deeply entrenched within the collective psyches of white America for them to abandon their racist subjugation of African Americans. Therefore, they never did. They merely reinvented their racist subjugation of African Americans with much more sophistication. Although most African Americans no longer experience the same type of blatant white racist subjugation tactics as our grandparents had, however, we're still being subjugated. However, unlike the past blatant subjugation tactics that African Americans were easily able to identify and therefore develop counter strategies against, today's ideological subversion system is not easily recognized, nor is it easily comprehended by most of its black victims. When comparing the difference between the Jim Crow segregation systems used in the past for maintaining white dominance over blacks to how it's now being achieved, one could say that the methods of the past had a GED, and this modern method has a PhD. It is that much more sophisticated. It's so sophisticated that it allows the white society to continue its subjugation of African Americans while simultaneously manipulating African Americans to believe that it's we that are now our own worst enemies. Therefore, it allows the white society to subjugate black people without any black resistance. This is our reality. This is because it's not easily comprehended nor by most of its black victims. The ultimate objective is to spread so much black racially demoralizing and divisive disinformation into the black community that prevents us from unifying ourselves against the white society in the interest of liberating ourselves. This ideological subversion system was deployed in response to the 1960s unprecedented black protest. It's designed to make sure it never happens again. Through it, virtually everything believed by the black population are lies that hinders our liberation. It confused the black population to such an extent that despite an abundance of information, no one is able to come to any sensible conclusion in the interest of defending themselves, their families, or our communities. The ultimate goal is the complete collapse of the black population. White social engineering scientists have developed a much more sophisticated system for maintaining their control and white dominance over black people. They developed a method not easily recognized or easily comprehended by the black victims. The white society's subjugation of black people always works best when the black victims don't understand how it works. Brothers and sisters, I never said that what I teach would be easy for everyone to comprehend. I only said that it would be the absolute black liberating truth, the truth that sets our minds free, the truth that emancipates us from mental slavery. This is it. To understand it requires that we elevate our thinking in order to develop the proper counter strategies that are necessary to liberate ourselves from it. We will never liberate ourselves using outdated strategies against modern white racist systems. We must elevate our understandings and then elevate our tactics to match the sophisticated tactics that are presently being deployed against us. Anyone who's telling you to just go read your Bible is trying to keep you to be a slave. If someone's telling you to go study Willie Lynch, they're keeping you to be a slave. Our liberation begins with learning the social sciences that they deploy against our minds so we can develop counter strategies to overcome it. One love and peace.